What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Major Keyz podcast with your host, Zach Wilson, talking to keyboard players about music and life and everything in between. Today, we have a special guest, Mr. Keyz Benjamin.
Ain't nothing new, 'cause we're always changing. Still water song, it's so hard. So what is love? What is it? What is love? What is it? Cool on the outside, hot in the middle. Cool on the outside, you ain't even gotta try. Oh, just got to realize.
How's it going, bro?
Good to be here, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you taking the time to do it. But yeah, man. Let's just get started. What got you into music, playing keys specifically, but I know you're a multi-instrumentalist, so like give me just the rundown of how all of that went.
Well, I got started with music mainly it was through my father. So my father was a musician. He wasn't super professional, but he was like a pseudo musician in the 70s. And he played in a couple of funk rock bands here in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So my father's from Grenada in the West Indies, and he came here in 1970 and joined the military in 74, right after Vietnam.
Okay.
End of Vietnam. And during that time, he was, as a lot of, it's kind of a stigma that was kind of true. West Indies always have a lot of different jobs. So my father was in the military. He was a musician. He was a DJ. He was one of the first cats in New York to install car stereos, like boom systems in cars.
Oh wow. Okay.
My father he's pretty dope.
Mm-hmm.
And through his record collection, he'd always be playing music. He used to live on an army base, and he played music around the house, and that was the journey. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
That started me. And we had a upright piano, and just started playing to the records, and that's how I started. I had perfect pitch, but I didn't realize I had it until I was about 11 or 12.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know if you know who Weldon Levine is. He was a mentor of mine because I grew up here in South Jamaica, Queens.
Gotcha.
He was a mentor of mine, and he told me that I had perfect pitch. I didn't even know what it was, but
interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, that's how my father was the one who started me on this journey, and so I started playing piano like around 5, 6.
Okay.
I was about 8, 10.
Were you taking lessons, or were you or like did you have a teacher, or how did that go?
So piano, I didn't have any lessons, no teacher, just all by ear, just played along to records. It wasn't until I started playing the saxophone in 5th grade, where I had formal instruction, introduced to harmony, all that stuff, and then I followed that to the piano. So I kind of did it backwards.
Oh, okay, got you. Interesting. So, real quick, is there any way that you can adjust where you are? Like your audio is kind of going in and out.
It is really
just a little bit, just a little bit. I don't know. It was just it's like going like up and down.
Is it the same? Is it different?
I think you're good. Like or maybe it's just like I don't know, but like I think if you talk about like right there, it should be good.
Maybe if I project my voice more.
Maybe so. Yeah. But got you. But yeah. Okay, so when you started sax, that's like, so you started going backwards and like started learning like all the theory and all that sort of, or just more like structure, like, so how did that, or like how did learning sax help you on keys?
I'm sorry, I didn't really understand.
Or did it, or I should have rephrased it better. So you started like actually officially learning music when you picked up the saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, did officially learning how to play music on the saxophone help you in turn with learning how to play keys too, since like the knowledge kind of transferred over? Like, did that kind of help? Yeah.
Yeah, it totally helped me. And then also just as
Mhm.
it also, I feel like it gives me an advantage as a saxophone player, because for myself, when you look, and even when I have students, if you can imagine the keyboard, if you're playing a horn and you imagine the key, everything's right there in front of you.
Right.
Like it's a picture that just never goes away. So every
Mhm.
time you're soloing, whatever, like everything's right there. So that helped me.
Yeah.
It's very visual. I think music is just in general is very visual. Everything is very cinematic. Like, for instance, my parents split up in divorce when I was very young. So
Okay.
majority of my adolescence, I lived with my mom, single mother household, and we didn't have a lot of money, and we had one TV, and my mom worked two jobs. She worked credit union from about 9 to 2, and then she worked at the post office from about 4 to 10.
Okay.
South Jamaica, Queens. We lived right by JFK. Well, used to that. Obviously, it's not on place, but back
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
we lived right by JFK, and so yeah, she would come home, and she'd have maybe about an hour or so of time to rest before she
Mhm.
had to go to a second job. And my mother loved her soap operas, like Days of Our Lives, All My
Mhm.
Children. So when she'd come home, it was about the time where she'd watch General Hospital. General Hospital used to come on like three in the afternoon.
Mhm.
So I would come home, get home like around 3:20, and she'd be asleep on the couch.
Mhm.
And what I would do is, and my mom would sleep like a rock.
Yeah.
I would turn the volume down,
Okay.
and I'd take out my horn and I'd play to
Ah.
the soap opera.
Okay.
So what I was doing is instilling these visions in my mind of, okay, I'm gonna play greed, I'm gonna play lust, I'm gonna play envy, I'm gonna play joy, I'm gonna play sorrow. And soap operas are so melodramatic.
Right.
Doing that so much, it's in my mind. So now when I'm on stage, I can tap into greed.
Because
Yeah,
you're so tapped into like the emotions that the soap operas gave you and like the
exactly.
music that they put behind that. It's like you
Not
can
even the music. It's just the emotion, because you
Okay,
get you
yeah.
get, you get that it's so cinematic. If you can, it's a way to separate yourself from the notes. Because
Okay.
at the end of the day, most people don't, they're not paying attention to notes. When you go to a show, they don't give a damn about notes. They give a damn how you make them feel,
Right.
and how and and a lot of the times it has to do with, it's nostalgia. Like you hear a certain song, it brings you to a certain time, or a certain song in a certain style brings you back to a certain time in your life.
Mhm.
So if you can tap into that,
Yeah.
then you're indestructible. I mean, that's Herbie. When you listen
Right.
to Herbie, that is cinematic as
Yeah.
Herbie is cinematic.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
You can close your eyes and it's like he's painting a picture.
Right.
So that's what I aspire to do, to separate myself from the notes. And at that age, when I was really young, I didn't know what the hell I was doing,
Right.
but it seemed right,
Mhm.
you know? So I don't know how we got to
Hey,
that.
Doc, man, tell me as much as you want to. If we go left,
Yeah.
we'll come back around. It's all good, seriously. But
Okay.
so when did you decide to take music like, okay, this is what I'm going to do for real, like with my life? Or did it just kind of happen?
Oh, well, interesting story about that. So top of fifth grade, I
Okay.
went to public school, PS 45. My teacher, who turned out to be my mentor for years after that, until she passed away, Pamela Smith, you know, she gives the students a choice. Hey, what do you want to play? Right.
Hmm.
So obviously, all the boys, what do they want to play? The drums.
Drums, yeah.
So I'm busy horsing around, not paying attention. I thought she said the drums. She said the saxophone. So I'm like, oh, me, 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 me.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, think that she's gonna come and give me a pair of drumsticks, and she comes over and gives me a saxophone.
Hmm.
I'm like, Miss Smith, but I wanted to play the drums. She said, well, you raised your hand for the saxophone. You weren't paying attention, so now you can play the saxophone. So I was like, man, I picked that horn up, took it home. Dude, within 2 weeks, I'm not even kidding.
Uh-huh.
I knew all my minor and major scales. I
Wow.
fell in love with this instrument. And I
Yeah.
knew right then at 8 years old, and are we allowed to curse?
Uh, I prefer if you don't,
Probably
but
not.
like,
Okay,
do you think? But yeah.
got you. Okay. Um, I'm not BSing you. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I knew right then and there,
Yeah.
this is exactly what I'm doing for the rest of my life. No doubt.
Wow. That's crazy.
No doubt at 8 years old.
Yeah.
Stayed true to it. And my mentor, Pamela Smith, she stayed with me,
Mm-hmm.
helped me through, helped me get into LaGuardia High School. I went to Performing Arts High School, helped me with my audition.
Okay.
When I was 12, she gave me her mouthpiece,
Mm-hmm.
which is a Beechler S6S.
Okay.
And she had this mouthpiece when she went to college back in the 70s in Tennessee. She went to Tennessee State.
Okay.
I think the same college that Lionel Richie went to.
Oh wow. All right.
So she had this mouthpiece from when she was in school
Mm.
and gave it to me when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never played any other mouthpiece since then. Now I'm in my 40s. I'm 45 years old. I've never played any other mouthpiece but that mouthpiece.
Wow.
So it's like, she's so special to me. And she passed.
Right. No, it's something about when you have a mentor or a teacher that like actually like instills in you and like believes in you. Because I've had 4 teachers. Like I had like my first teacher who almost cut me off from lessons because it was like I was put in piano lessons at the age of 5. And so I think I wasn't at first, like I wasn't like really getting it. It took me a minute to grasp onto the lessons. And like my teacher went to my mom and was like, hey, I think you might just be wasting your money. You might, but like anyway, I don't know, something happened in there and like they didn't give up. And so that happened. And then I had another teacher who helped me out on like classical stuff. I went to my music minister and I was like, I want to play for the youth choir. So he taught me gospel stuff for 2 years, and then my college professor. But yeah, all of them, and I still keep in contact to all of them to this day. And like, they still support me in everything that I do. And so, but no, like definitely having someone on your side that like that sees the potential in you, and it's like super important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely. So were you like gigging through through high school? Were you like gigging in the Atlanta scene? Like were you trying to do stuff outside of school, or was it like school stuff? And like what did it look like out?
Did you say Atlanta?
Atlanta? No. Did I say Atlanta? I'm gigging in New York. In New York, my bad. I didn't mean Atlanta.
Okay.
Like were you gigging in New York and like out like just doing stuff outside of school? I'm in New York.
Yeah.
I definitely
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's funny, man, because rocking with the Experiment, everybody used to always think that I was from the South because, Rob is from Houston and Chris and Mark is from St. Louis and Derek's from, he's from South Jersey, Philly. But like, they grew up in the church and, I didn't, I'm West Indian, Afro-Latino, grew up here in New York City. So like this and that, but I just thought it was funny when you said that.
Yeah.
I started playing. So I was in this group at a young age, and at the beginning we were called Creation, and we were a reggae band, and all the guys we were all around the same age. We were like started the band at about 11, 12 years old, and my first gig was with this group, and I was 12 years old, and our parents had the chaperones because they were serving liquor.
Mm-hmm. And you're on sax or on keys?
I'm on saxophone.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm on saxophone, and we're opening for bands in New York City and doing this sort of thing. And then we started getting more into R&B, writing more radio stuff. And again, we're like early teens, and then we got signed to Uptown MCA. So
Okay.
we were signed right after So For Real. So at the time, it was So For Real was on the label. Mary J. Blige was still at the label.
Mm.
Guy was still there. Horace Brown, a
Mm-hmm.
couple of others. Andre Harrell was still there at Uptown. We
Mm-hmm.
got signed. And this is during my high school. I was at like LaGuardia High School forming
Mm-hmm.
up. So there I was really tapping more into writing and
Mm.
doing more keyboard stuff, really getting into that sort of thing. And yeah, we stayed there for a while, almost finished our album. Andre Harrell left. Heavy D came in, took over for Andre Harrell.
Okay.
And Heavy D brought in Monifa. I don't know if you know any of these artists. This is like
I know Heavy D. I've heard of Heavy D. I've heard of Andre
okay.
Harrell. Yeah, but so some of them, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like 95, 96. I was just about to graduate from high school.
Okay.
And Heavy brought in this artist he had called Monifa. She was hot at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like you guys' album. It's really awesome. But before you do that, I want you to go on the road and be the band for Monifa. And we didn't want to do that. It's like, man, we're almost done with our album. We're not trying to be anybody's backup band, you know?
Yeah.
So we were let out of our contract.
Okay.
And at that time, there was some inner turmoil in the group. So the group we weren't as cohesive as we should have.
Okay.
But then from that point on, we met this cat named Dom Trenier.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know who Dom Trenier is. Dom Trenier is behind Chiba Music, which had at the time we had D'Angelo. And we had
Okay.
so this is like late 90s. This is like the birth of Neo Soul.
Yeah.
And I remember he used to have an apartment in the city in Manhattan, 14th and 3rd, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he sounded like one of those. He just had this like really raspy voice.
Mm-hmm.
I remember 3 of us from the band went there to have this meeting. And he's there and he's talking. He's like, yeah, I love you guys' stuff. And this and that. And in the background, he's playing the rough mixes of voodoo.
Oh,
so
wow.
Like instrumental of like Feel Like Making Love, the Spanish joint, all these. And I'm, you hear Questlove. I'm just like, at the time, again, I'm like 18, almost 19.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is crazy. This is insane. And then he comes out of the room, he comes into the living room and he brings this book, this thick.
Mm-hmm. And
it's basically like D'Angelo 3 years. So it's like the ending part of like Brown Sugar, like some stuff. He's like at a show or whatever. And then it gets to him training. So he's training for voodoo, like physically training. So he's like,
oh wow, okay,
part with like a parachute on his back. He has like this drill sergeant training, like all this stuff way before the album comes out. I'm just like,
yeah.
My eyes are just like, and again, there was turmoil in the band and it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
And like Chiba blew up and voodoo came out. So at that time, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go to school. That's when I started going to the new school. And that's where I met Robert Glasper,
Got you.
All the clubs.
Got you. Got you. Okay, cool. So you I want to get back to that, of course, but like I want you mentioned that you were trying to that you were getting into your songwriting. So what was and maybe is your songwriting process when you're writing for yourself and then versus when you're writing, say, with other people?
Well, when it comes to songwriting for myself, obviously it's extremely personal and very centralized. I tend to, I kind of I'm kind of a hopeless romantic. I love love songs. And I love classic, well-written songs. Especially from like the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Sweet spot for me. So when writing for myself, I have more time.
Yeah.
I have more time to flush out my ideas and my feelings. Also was in another group called Heavy.
Oh yeah, I was gonna get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my partner in Heavy, Nikki Gillen, she's incredible. Her pen is phenomenal. she's just a great creative writer, like just
Yeah.
a writer in general. So like for her to put it, it's just she's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And she helps me a lot with some of the writing. So she we went to high school together. We were in a relationship for 10 years.
Okay.
She knows me inside and right.
Mm-hmm.
She's like best friends. So she's able to tap into some things that I'm not able to really get to. But to answer your question, writing for myself, I tend to have a little bit more time and I become more introspective and look at myself, how I'm feeling, and what the feeling I want to evoke and put out there for people to hear. Now, writing for other people, there's so many different dynamics because it's like they can come with a journal of an idea that I may like or not really fully understand. Like, okay, well, do this or maybe change that. And then I try to tap into the person I'm working with. I want to know who they are, what type of person they are. Like I dig more deep into it rather than say, hey, let me just write a song for you and this is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't really, it's like instant potatoes versus your grandmother's recipe.
Right.
Of making potatoes for like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Right. It has more depth, has more feeling. So when writing or producing for other people, I like to get to know that person.
Okay.
So I don't know if that gives you a little bit.
No. That gives me a good no. I totally understand what you're saying. So say if you're writing for yourself, are you like, or do you like set out to write a song, or is it just like, oh, I'm walking, like I hear this melody, like let me sing it in my voice notes, like let me go to the keys real quick, like that sort of thing. Like I know some people it's just like, oh, I have this whole thing that I have to do. I set up the keyboard and just let it like, if there is there anything like that, or it just varies like from song to song?
It varies. It's usually I'll come up with a melody in my head, and then I'll go and find harmony chords to match that melody. Or sometimes I'm just sitting down at my Rhodes and I'll just play something and it's like, oh, and then it comes in. Or it's just, again, I'm a DJ as well. I'm a fan of the records.
Yeah.
Just listening, just sitting down and listening. Like me and Q-Tip will sit down for hours on end and just listen to albums.
Yeah.
And like I've learned so much from this cat. That's a whole other conversation. Q-Tip.
Oh no, I had it on my notes. I knew you played with him. So like so I guess since we're here, I don't know which came first. Did Heavy come first, or did playing with Q-Tip come first?
Heavy came first. Heavy came out of, so me and Nikki.
Okay.
Again, we went to Performing Arts High School. I was an instrumental major. She was a vocal major.
Okay.
We started dating like right before we graduated. Or 96. And during the beginning part of our relationship, we both went to new school. And she just wanted, she was really her favorites are like Carmen McRae, the great Sarah Vaughan, Nancy Wilson. She wanted to be a traditional jazz vocalist.
Yeah.
And I was like, but your pen is incredible. Like, we should do this. We should switch. And she was like, oh. And then we did her senior recital, and we did some of the things that I thought were really cool, and that changed her mind. And that's how we started Heavy. So Heavy started when we started Heavy when we were 20. 19,
okay, yeah.
20. I didn't start working with Tip. I was working with Tip through the Experiment. That was my first kind of working with Tip.
Okay.
But I didn't become Tip's right-hand guy until 2007, 2008.
Got you. So for people that don't know Heavy, could you like describe the group, like the sound and like how y'all did stuff?
So Heavy, we were at the time. Now again, we're talking 2000. It was a sound based off of jazz, funk, R&B, very reminiscent of a lot of retro stuff, stuff in the 70s and 80s. And we were considered left of center.
Okay.
And at that time, there weren't a lot of left of center groups that were progressive, who were of our hue.
Yeah.
Right? It was us, Jay Davy, and Salah.
Mm-hmm.
And we all had struggles
Yeah.
getting through to mainstream because
Mm-hmm.
and we really thought we had a chance at a certain point because we were opening for Pharrell. And
Oh, wow. Okay.
Pharrell at that time they had Star Trek.
Okay.
So Pharrell we did, at that time everybody was doing showcases. That was a big thing.
Okay.
Have a showcase, these labels would come down and we had this residency at this swanky hotel in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Came down with we had like an entourage of like 15 people. And he was like, yeah, why don't you guys come and open for us? So we opened for him. But even with that, they were just like, yeah, we don't know what you do. We kind of left the center. People just had a hard time digesting.
Like kind of placing you like somewhere, like trying to categorize you. Like, is that what it?
Yeah, because we were very broad.
Okay, yeah.
We were very broad.
Mm-hmm.
Giles Peterson, Giles loved us. And he said, yeah, you guys do everything. Like, and Giles used to say, man, I always felt like you guys are ahead of your time. If you guys did what you did 5 years later, it would have caught on, but it was just ahead of,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting time because again, that sort of thing was not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there weren't left to center now, and it's great because we kind of get our flowers from like, Moonchild and Hiatus Coyote and groups like that are doing stuff in that vein that we tried to do, years ago.
Right.
But it's all about the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think you'd ever start it back?
Oh, we're going back in the studio to do a new album.
Dope.
Mm-hmm.
So that was heavy. And so tell me about your work with Q-Tip and like, your role in that whole setting.
So the whole thing with Q-Tip, Rob, I'm talking about Glasper. Rob had around the time Rob just had his first kid.
Mm-hmm.
Just had Riley, and he was on. We had put out Double Book.
Okay.
But let me back up a little bit. Chris Dave had a relationship with one of Maxwell's principal producers, cat named Hod. Really great guy, Hod.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris was like, hey, Max is about to do this kind of like this album, like it's like 3 movements, Summer's Night. We didn't know what the name of the album was at the time.
Right.
It was going to be like a trilogy sort of thing. He's like, yo, trying to make it sort of experiment with a band for this. So we're like, all right, cool. At the time, Rob was playing with Q-Tip. Rob was Q-Tip's keyboard player. At the time, I was playing with Victor Bailey.
Okay.
So I was touring with Victor Bailey, and at the time, the band was going to be The Experiment, and then the other horn players were going to be Corey King and on trumpet, Milan Thomas.
Okay.
So they kept moving the date around, and I was like, oh man, like, because we're working musicians, like, all right, like, listen, I gotta pay my rent, like, what are we doing? And kept moving, and I couldn't hold out much longer, so I had to take some more dates with Victor Bailey.
Okay.
That week, of course, it happens. That week, I choose to do these gigs. They start going in the studio. So they go in the studio, and at the time, Keon
Harold,
and Kenneth Whalum and Saunders Cerny.
Okay.
They had just finished the Jay-Z Mary J. Blige tour.
Mm-hmm.
All them in as a horn section.
Mm.
And then Rob was like, hey man, do you mind? He's like, can you take over for me for the Q-Tip gig?
Okay.
With the Bailey. And I was like, yeah, cool. So went over to Tip. Now, mind you, me and Tip already knew each other, but he didn't know that I was a multi-instrumentalist. He didn't know that.
Yeah. So how did he know you then? He only knew you like
He knew me through the experiment. We
Okay.
actually met years ago, but
Mhm.
I was really young, and he
Yeah.
was, like top of his career. I left my wallet in El Segundo. He was like, this is like the beginning of Tribe. This
Yeah.
is
Okay.
like, because we were Weldon Irvine had a basement in Queens, a workshop, a legendary workshop, and all the cats would go there. Omaha King, Poochie Bell, Lenny
Oh,
White.
wow.
Everybody would
Okay.
be there.
Yeah.
It was like a very Jamaica Queens, Jamaica funk film, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, he knew me through the experiment. So when I came over to play in his band, because he was, the Renaissance had just come out and we were gearing up for that tour.
Hmm.
So he didn't know that I played all these instruments. Like, yeah, I saw the vocoder and sax, but I didn't know you're like a legit keyboard player and you write. And I was like, yeah. And so he's like, he's like, at the shows, he's like, on Keyz and Reeds, Casey Benjamin, Keyz and Reeds, that's his thing. He has to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's how that started.
Mhm.
And then from that point, man, we were like,
Yeah.
thick as thieves, man. That's like, he's like my older brother, man.
Got you.
I learned so much from it. And then I started DJing in 2011,
Mhm.
and that sparked from him and DJ Spinner.
Okay. Got you.
That's a really good thing. So
Cool.
it's a lot of stuff,
No, it's definitely a lot of stuff. I didn't realize that all this stuff was kind of happening like simultaneously. In my mind, I'm like, oh, it's okay. You did this for a couple of years. You did this for a couple of years. But like the fact that it's like all going on at once. But yeah, real quick, I guess that speaks to like the culture of the music that was going on in New York. Now that we look at it now, like looking at it now, it's just like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, like while Rob was playing with Common and the Roots, Casey was over here playing with Q-Tip, all that sort of stuff. At the time, did y'all think about impact and like what it could mean to today, or were y'all just playing music and y'all just wanted to just do your thing?
We knew what we did. We know what we were doing back then was incredibly unique, special, and more than anything, the timing. The timing is so special. The timing of us doing what we did was perfect because it was nothing like what we were doing. There was first of all, there's not a lot of big black bands, especially like before us. You had the Roots, Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, right.
Then you're going into the 70s.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, or Mint Condition.
Okay, yeah.
Big up some Mint Condition. Stokely, good man. That's a good guy. There wasn't really anything else. So we were like connecting of what the Headhunters, Return to Forever, mixed with, we were all influenced by the Roots. We were all influenced by Mint Condition.
Yeah.
And we were all kids of the 80s, grew up listening to hip hop and R&B, listening to black radio, no pun intended, black radio.
Right.
So that's where that came from. So it just seemed fitting. And then the thing that the thing that was really special around that time, this is like during neo soul, the meat of neo soul. All the artists do the pinnacle artists of that genre, Erica, Music Soul Child, D'Angelo, Common, Mos Def, they all use jazz musicians. So for all of us, we had a tipping gig where we were swinging, and we also had a neo soul gig or a hip hop neo soul gig. So like, Rob was playing with Common, but he was also playing with Kenny Garrett. Chris Dave was with Kenny Garrett. Yeah, he was also playing with Michelle in
Degacello.
Degacello, excuse me. Yeah. Right. Derek Hodge was with Terrence Blanchard and Mo Grew Miller was also with Jill Scott. I'm playing with Stephon Harris, but I'm also with Mos Def. Right. Like we all had these duality kind of cross-section things happening. Right. That made it so special. And it made it like seamless. And I remember the first call that when Rob called me,
Mm-hmm.
I had a flip up phone. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And he just recently just got his deal. Well, not recently. He had just finished his second album,
Okay.
real album at Blue Note, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I want to start this group where we literally play everything. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And he called me first because he knew that I was like the weird one, because I would come to school with electronics and shit, and people like, what the, everyone's in the practice rooms, shedding giant steps and 12 keys and doing all like, and I'd come in with electronics and vocal. At the time, I was doing a lot of talk box.
Yeah.
And I had my pedal board and I had this big amp. And cats would make fun of me. Talk behind my back.
Yeah.
And I just took it on the show. I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
And those same cats today are like, so Casey, what is it you doing? Can you show me?
Hilarious. Man, I was like, oh yeah, now you're trying to, but no, I definitely, but no, that the duality conversation is so interesting.
Yeah.
That's a whole,
so that was a thing at the time. So like when we started the group, we were playing like $50 gigs. We were still, working musicians, just cutting our teeth. And we didn't know the impact. And then it was not until we were the band for Mos Def.
Mm-hmm. And
we were rehearsing for, I think we were playing the Kennedy Center or something.
Okay.
After rehearsal, we were like, yo, like, this is in the city. We were like, yo, let's go hang out. There was this cat named Forrest who had this open mic thing at the time that was really popular in New York City. Mm-hmm. This is like circa 2005.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
We go to this thing and we just bum rush the stage. We just roll up and he's like, all right, we're just gonna play. And we just start playing some Dilla stuff, and Moses comes up and starts rocking. Mm-hmm. This is like the beginning of like YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's probably out there somewhere, but like that went viral.
Yeah.
And then Questlove and all, then they still was like, yo, who are these cats? Like we were on the radar.
Yeah.
Then because of Rob's deal with Blue Note, he can only do certain gigs because of his name. So that's why he used to do gigs called Ladius Young.
Ah, okay.
Called the gig Chris Dave and Friends, but it was really an experiment gig. That's how we get around doing gigs, because he was signed to Blue Note. So he couldn't do it. If he's playing the Vanguard for a week, he can't play another club a week later.
Because I remember he's told the story. He's like, yeah, I'll have a gig at the Blue Note, but like across the street, like it'll be like another name, but it'll be y'all.
Yeah. He used to use Ladius Young.
That's crazy.
Rob would say, yo, what's up, young lad? So Ladius Young.
Yeah.
So people would know it was, which is really clever because, Rob has a big following of friends that are around him and they know his lingo. So they know if it's a Ladius Young show, it's really Experiment, but he can't call it the Experiment because he just did the Robert Glasper trio at Vanguard or wherever.
That's crazy.
He had to be strategic, which is, I give him props for that. That was very, 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 very
right
thing to do. But the first gigs, like the infamous 55 bar tapes, right? We started playing the 55 bar.
Okay.
You got to understand, the 55 bar is known for more fusion jazz. Like Jocko used to play there, and Mike Sterner, and like cats like that.
All right.
We're coming in there. It's the first time in history of that club where the demographic, the people that were coming there, Black women and young white college kids.
Yeah.
That was a demographic.
Yeah.
5 bar had never had a whole bunch of Black women in there. Never. Yeah. It's like it's right there in the village. It's in Greenwich. Like there's not a lot of melanin in that, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, and we'd sell, the cap of the room is like 70, 75. We would have to turn the room around about 4 times a night. The line would be about 4 to 5 blocks long.
Wow. Just to hear. And then y'all didn't have the record out either, though. Y'all didn't have anything out.
This is before Double Book.
Wow, that's crazy.
This is before Double Book. That's why those tapes are, because it's like everybody would be like, yo, yo, because the tapes would be going around and people want to go to the show, and that's the only way you can hear us. So
Wow.
at that point, that's when we're like, yo, this
We
is
got to do it for real.
really special.
Yeah.
And before it was called The Experiment, it was called RCDC.
Mm-hmm. Like that's what I don't know who does the intro on the double book thing on the double booked album, but it was like, yeah, RCDC rock on. Like, no, that's on Liftoff. That's on
Black
Liftoff.
Radio.
Yeah, that's on Liftoff. Yeah,
that's Shafiq from Salah.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the name of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was Rob, Casey, Derek, Chris, or Rob, Chris, Derek, Casey. With his name, Chris,
right?
But that was the name of the band, right? And because of contractual things with Blue Note, Rob couldn't, do something with his name, and then he couldn't be silent, and it had to be called. The reason why it's called Robert Glasper Experiment is because of Rob's Blue Note contract. That's the only reason why. It was supposed to be labeled as a group, but the way his deal was structured, couldn't do it that way. So that sucked. We weren't happy about that. I mean, more so me and Chris weren't happy about it, but it is what it is, and we rolled with it, and we created great art, and we went on and toured the world and got Grammys, and
all that good stuff.
So I mean, it was just such a special thing.
Yeah.
At the time, and there was nothing like it, and just to see that the influence, every single person of this band has such a stark influence on the musicians on this scene. Like, I mean, I could go to any gig and you see cats with the cymbal.
Yeah, the spiral. Yeah.
Or you see cats playing all this melodic stuff. That's all Derek. Or you see Rob is everyone's in Rob. And then now I see saxophone players all have pedal boards, and some of them have vocoders. That wasn't happening before me.
Right.
So each individual of this group had such an impact. And that's why I feel like this band is so incredibly special, especially for our culture, for Black people. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so incredibly special to me.
Absolutely. And I know for a fact I saw y'all 5 times. And every show was just like amazing, I wanted to know though, how did you get into all the electronics and stuff? Because it's like, how did you even think to listen to do the vocoder? I know some of this because I saw it in an interview one time, but like for the people that don't know, like what made you think like, oh yeah, like I'm not just gonna play keys, like I want to emulate my voice and do this sort of stuff? And what made you think to move forward with that technology and all that sort of stuff?
Well, again, being a fan of all the records from the 70s, huge fan of funk, from Jamaica, Queens, Jamaica funk, like heavy into that sort of thing. And I was a big Robert Troutman fan.
Okay.
So I started on the talk box and, loved it. And then Nicky from Heavy.
Okay.
Her father had a nice little record selection.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a lot of records, but he had about 100 records at the house that were really some records that I'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this Herbie album called Sunlight.
Sunlight, yep.
Now, at the time, I was 17, 18 at the time. So I listened to this. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? I've never heard anything like this. I'm like,
yeah,
it was so different from the talk box, because thing about the talk box, it is what it is. Like when you hear it, that like it's hard to get your own sound on talk box.
Yeah,
it's a very particular sound.
With
the vocoder, it's more personalized. There's so many different vocoders and different characteristics. People have different sounds. Like Terrace Martin has his own sound. Brandon Coleman has his own sound. There's a whole lot of other cats that have their own particular sound of the vocoder.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what really drew me in, was because it could be so personalized.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, I went at the time, you can only find, it was hard to find because they didn't do that, they didn't reissue that album. Like it was the Dusty Grooves was a record store at the time in Chicago, and they specialized in reissuing rare vinyl on CD.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only like place, and there was a couple other places. But anyway, that album changed my life, and I went around, I found the CD in Princeton, New Jersey, some random record shop.
Wow.
And I listened to it. Then at that point, a good friend of mine, Chris Parks, he had a Korg MS-2000, the actual keyboard.
Okay.
He had a situation with Korg. He had a partial endorsement deal. I was playing this keyboard. I was recording the Heavy album. And there's a cut on the first Heavy album called She Who Knows.
Okay.
And it's me singing the melody on vocoder, and I used his keyboard. And, it was, at the time, I just used the stock sound and I tweaked it a little bit. I didn't really spend any time. I was like, and I fell in love with it. Like, man, this is great. So he hooked me up. I got a partial deal, and I got the MS-2000 wrapped. Now, mind you, this vocoder, what is it? I think it's 16 band. So I sat at home, went through all the parameters, went through all the oscillators, got a really good mic, studied. At this time, I already went down the rabbit, so I found Sunlight. Then I was listening to Feet Don't Fail Me Now, and I was listening to Monster. I was listening to everything that Herbie's singing vocoder on. I studied it for years, for months and years. Speech tests, vowels, ran it down, and I built my own sound out of a 16-band vocoder. Now, mind you, the vocoder that Herbie uses, the VSM 201 by Sennheiser, you probably hooked to it, right? They
not
gave
for
that.
Real. Huh? Yeah, I said not for real. I'm not super hip.
Okay.
Like,
So that's the vocoder he used on Sunlight.
Okay.
Sound. Sennheiser gave him that vocoder in 1978.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever read Herbie's book Possibilities.
It's over there. I have heard it. Yeah. Or I've read it. I've read the book. I mean,
great book, right? But like, this vocoder is 64 band. So that's why on the record you can hear Herbie literally breathe, and it sounds like this because it's more bands. Yeah, that vocoder, if you find it, you're paying upwards of 20-25K. Wow. They're super rare. I think Fat Floyd has one, and Herbie probably has two. And there's not a lot of them. Right. So me with, I don't have a lot of money. I'm sitting here with a 16-band vocoder with this mic, trying to get it to sound like a $25,000 vocoder. Yeah. And that's what I did, and then that became my sound. And then everybody was like, Casey, what are you using? This is, and I'm like, it's totally custom. It's a custom sound. Right. It's custom. And I did some other work to it that, I can't really talk to about, but like, that's what makes my sound my sound. Because I've definitely looked up vocoder, and like, I'm like, I do not see what he's using. I do not see it, but Yeah. And I had the experiment some years ago. We opened for Herbie in Celebrate Brooklyn. I think it was Celebrate Brooklyn Festival. Right around the time that book came in. And, obviously I read the book, and I brought it with me after a sound check, or, after sound check, let's talk to Herbie. So we're backstage, and I had him sign my book, and I was just asking him, I was like, yeah, man. So like, ask him about the vocoder, and man, I had a hard time. It's hard to get it extremely legible, right? Yeah. Especially with a 16-band vocoder. Yeah. When Herbie told me, when he was recording all those albums back in the late 70s, and how he had a hard time, that blew my mind. He's like, yeah, I would spend 2 weeks just working on the EQ. Wow. Brian Bell, who was one of his top producers at the time, we just worked on it and tried to tweak it and get it right. And oh gosh, keyboard player, I'm blanking on his name. Legendary, all of Michael Jackson stuff. Greg Fillinganes. Greg. So
Yeah.
speaking of Greg, right?
Yeah.
Awesome guy, Greg, and he's like, yeah, you did. I was like, so like what? Because I asked him. I played
Yeah.
with Patrice Russian. I've asked all the people I always
Oh
ask
man.
what, you know.
Mhm.
So I asked Greg. I was like, yeah, man, like, so like, what is he's like? He used a memory moog or a moog,
Mhm.
memory moog or moog, and he used a violin patch as a sound carrier for the vocoder.
Interesting.
I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And then the thing that Herbie said, he said the only thing that sucked was that damn moog was so heavy. And he's like, you know, we were wearing polyester bell-bottom suits, and I was
Yeah.
hot already. And then you have this big analog piece of gear on you, which generates a whole lot of heat. It's all tubes,
Yeah.
and it was heavy.
Yeah.
So like there's this classic video on YouTube where he's concert he's doing in '79, and I think it's in the UK, and he's
Okay.
singing like "Honey from the Jar," you know, "I Thought It Was You," and
Mhm.
he's singing vocoder,
Yeah.
and some of it's slightly out of tune, you know, but it's analog, and that's the concert he's talking about.
Okay.
So anyway, it was all these little gems that he's giving me, and it just made me feel good. I was like, wow, like now I know I'm not the only one that goes through all these
Yeah. Yeah.
tweaking situations trying to get it just right, you know.
Mm.
And Patrice Russian, I used to play with Buster Williams band,
Okay.
and the band at the time was Buster Williams, Lenny White, and Patrice Russian.
Okay.
And Patrice is amazing. Patrice is like this tall. She's really short, and her
Uh-huh.
hands are like this big.
Mhm.
She plays all this damn harmony, man. Like
Yeah.
just incredible. But like there's this song called Give It All You Got.
Okay.
And it's a duet between Herbie and her. They're singing a duet. It's
Okay.
on Light Me, it's on the album Light Me Up. I think it's 1983.
Okay.
So I asked her about that. I was like, so what was that like when you went in the studio with Herbie? And she's like, yeah, I just sang. I think she had some, it wasn't a vocoder. She was singing, I think it was like some sort of filtered voice,
Mhm.
but Herbie covered his stuff up. She couldn't see what Herbie was using. I
Wow.
understand at the time because again, she was on top of her game too. Like she had some hit records.
Yeah.
They were all doing like jazz, funk, commercial sort of stuff.
Mhm.
So Herbie probably saw her as competition.
Competition. Yeah.
Sort of way. So like, we're gonna do this record together, but you're not gonna see what I'm using.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, I never saw it. He would never like. It just blew my mind, man. I was
Right.
like, what?
Yeah, man. Dog, that's crazy. That's crazy. Man, I'm learning so much, man. This is really dope. I want to I've got a couple of other questions that I just ask everybody, but I wanted ask you one thing you said in an interview. It's like you want to make music for the audience and not for yourself. I think you I'm trying to remember the actual context, but like it was like I Rock Jazz interview or something like that. But
Oh yes, I remember.
you said something like that. So like I just want to know, is that opinion the same? Like what do you exactly mean by that? Like I think because you know, in my mind, when I'm like writing music, I'm trying my best. I'm like, yeah, this sounds good musically, but like how I've always wondered how does some of the music that I enjoy sound to non-musicians?
Mhm.
And how do you keep it musically interesting, but you don't want to go over the person's head and all that sort of stuff. So just like, what's your opinion and like your take on that?
So my take on it, and maybe it should be a little bit more refined.
Mhm.
You do have to have some sort of self gratification. You can't just make art and not be gratified to it. That's
Yeah.
silly, right?
Right.
I think for myself, I don't like when music gets too, and this is my own personal opinion,
Yeah.
it gets too heady.
Mhm.
When it starts to sound like a math equation, I tap out because it's
Mhm.
like that's not for me. The purpose of music, it's community,
Mhm.
right? It's you create something that you're hoping the community will enjoy,
Mhm.
right? And not to say that the community won't like, you know, math equation sounding music,
Yeah.
but like I think a lot of musicians get caught up in trying to make it so complex to please their peers, to
Mhm.
please their friend musicians,
Mhm.
rather than pleasing the audience. Because you're playing to, you want to impress your friends and fellow musicians. I get that part. But if you're trying to last in the business, you have to think broader than that. You got to make music for everybody. Like one of the models for the experiment, and we used to follow it, and it worked. We'd make music for women. Because if you make music for women, what happens?
Then all the guys come. Yeah.
Men always go where the women are.
Right.
We're gonna sit here and make music for dudes. Why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if we make music for women, then we get you as well by osmosis. So that's why we, and it's not so calculated. Like, hey, we're just gonna do like we love that type of music.
Right.
I love man. I think what separates the men from the boys is playing a ballad. You could sit at home and shed and play all this cool stuff. Let me see you play a ballad. And then you have cats that play all this stuff over a ballad. It's like, no. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the beauty is in the shit that you. I'm sorry. The beauty is in.
Bro, you're good.
The beauty is in the stuff that you don't play. I mean, come on, Miles said it. The spaces, like, the beauty is even beyond that is like, I'm gonna play something that's not that, but it's gonna imply that I can play that, but I choose not to because this is what fits the mood right now. That's clutch. Yeah, that's the money shot right there. Because at that point, you don't have to flex. Yeah. Why do I have to flex in front of you? Why? I'm secure in myself. I could do this and I could walk away. For sure. And it's so much more impactful. And if you, man, there's so many layers to it. And we, this is all the stuff we used to talk about when our flight is delayed in the airport. Yeah. At the bar. We just, and that's another thing too. The experiment, we rarely talk about music. Interesting. So the beauty of a band, what I believe is, it's knowing the person. Like the instruments, Stephon Harris said that he's like, this is just all metal and wood. It's an extension of our conversation. I know who you are. I know how you're going to end your sentence, how you're going to start your sentence. So we're good friends and we know all the vocabulary. Yeah. When we get on stage, we don't have to think about what we're going to play, how we're going to get into the next song, how we're going to end the song, because I know who you are. And that's what the experiment was. We rarely ever talked about music. We talked about sports. We talked about women. We talked about all other things besides the actual thing. Yeah. And that's the beauty. That's what makes the classic Miles Davis band so incredibly dope, is that they're so free. Yeah. They're so free in exploring. There's no boundaries. Why? Because they understand the limitations of each player. Yeah. They understand what this person is offering and that person's offering, so they don't have to talk about it. Yeah. That's where I always aspire to be. No. When you hear Herbie and Jack DeJohnette and Dave Holland, or you hear them play together, or Ron or Buster Williams, those cats are free. Lenny White, they don't mark one. You never know where one is. Yeah. They mark it, but they're in there. This is one. You just feel it. And that's the freedom that I aspire to have.
Got you. That's super, because I've definitely I've spent countless hours on YouTube watching experiment shows and watching concerts and live sessions or whatever. I was just rewatching one last night and today. It was from 2015. I was like, dog, none of them have looked at each other for any sort of cue or anything. And I was just like, and of course, that was 2015. So that's after y'all been doing it for a while. But I was like, dog, no one's looked at any. I'm like, they're not reading any set list. But no, I was just like, oh no, y'all are just in tune with each other. And I'm just, but no, it's super, super inspiring, super admirable. And also, go ahead.
I just want to add one other thing with Chris Dave. Yeah. We used to do gigs. Chris never used to show with any drums. he did like, and obviously at that point, Chris was a superstar at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We were all, everybody in the band was a fan of Chris's.
Yeah.
We all listened to, like, when I knew that Chris was gonna be in the band,
yeah,
I was like, yo, wait, Chris Day from Mint Condition? I was a fan. I was fanning him.
yeah,
I was trying to keep myself,
yeah.
keep my composure. But Chris would never show up he'd be like, some random fan would show up with the crack cymbal and some random snare drum, and he just pieced it together, and you still would know it's Chris Day.
Wow.
Because his sound, the way his vision is so strong. You could put plastic drums in him and it would still kill, and you'd still know it's Chris Day. That is dope. You know, that to me was just like beyond, you know.
Right. I wanted to let you know, because you mentioned Sunlight in an album, that it made me go listen to Sunlight. This is like years ago. I mean, you mentioned Sunlight in an interview. You mentioned it in an interview, and like someone was asking you about maybe your vocoder inspiration, but you hyped up Sunlight, and that's what made me go listen to it. And you know, I feel like I've done some stuff from that album. I've played it. I at least learned I Thought It Was You, but like I just enjoy the album, because like I don't play vocoder as of right now. As of right now, I don't play it, but like, you know, no, dope album. I just wanted to let you know, like, you're the one who put me onto that album specifically.
Yeah. Did you have you ever checked out Feet So Feel Me Now?
Yes. Trust Me is one of my favorite songs.
Trust Me. Okay. So if you just look at Trust Me, just the writing, which I think I wanted to don't quote me out. Did Calvin Harris write Trust Me, the lyrics? I have to look to see what the lyrics.
I can check. I can check while you're. I'm gonna ask you another question, and like I can check. All right, so these are questions that I ask everybody who comes on the podcast. What has been your worst gig, or the worst thing that has happened to you on a gig? It could be musically, like while you're playing vocoder, or like specifically, I would say vocoder because of like the Keyz podcast, you know. But like, yeah, what's the worst thing that's happened to you on a gig?
One of the worst things that happened, or two things that happened.
All right.
I forget which one happened first. Okay, so the Experiment, we were on tour, and we used to start, I don't know, this is probably like around 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to play No Church in a While.
Mm-hmm.
We used to start our set off with that, right?
Right.
So I don't know if we were in Paris or London. And we're starting it off. And the keytar that I had, it wasn't my own. It was a backline keytar. So it was like a Volan X. It was a AX7.
Okay.
It was a red AX7. And my instinct told me something was off. Something wasn't completely right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, well, we got to do the show. I start singing. Yo, that joint it was changing all random notes. Now, mind you, Kanye came up and sat in with us. Kanye was there.
Kanye was at that show?
They were at the show.
Oh, gosh.
Man, they were at the show. So I'm just like,
out of all the shows for this to happen.
So Rob's looking like, yo, dude, I'm like, I don't know, like this. So, and he's wanting to know what's happening, but at the same time, he's dying laughing.
Yeah.
Mark is everybody's laughing.
Yeah.
And I'm there. I'm like, I'm so embarrassed. The crowd kind of, they don't really, because it's a
don't really know.
Right? You know, they don't really
know. Yeah.
Really understand, but they know something's off. And then like Kanye and 88 Keyz are in the wings, and I'm just like, I'm just embarrassed. So that sucked. And then there was another time where we did Jimmy Fallon.
Okay.
And we did Teen Spirit.
Okay.
You know. And I just had a brain fart. Like, you know, load up your guns, bring your friend. I just forgot the lyric. So like it's probably on YouTube. I'm like, la 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 la. I'm singing la la la. So Rod's point is like, because because I couldn't remember. I just like, I think with everything happening, I just had a brain fart.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I got the pre-chorus. I
Yeah.
snapped the pre-chorus. But like, you know, and then the last thing, this
Go ahead.
actually, this was really funny.
Yeah.
This is this has to be what, 2000. I think this is like 2011
Okay.
or 12. I think 2012 in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And this venue, what's the name of the venue? But instead of, we usually do like a 90-minute set.
Okay.
This time they split it up in half. We did 2 45s.
Mm-hmm.
And our special guest was Bilal.
Mm-hmm.
But Bilal flew in. He got there, and he's like, "Yo, I got these weed cookies." I was like, "Okay." So it was like they're like vanilla wafers.
Okay.
So Rob took one, I took one. I think Derek had half, and I think Bilal was already blazed. He might have took another one.
Yeah.
So we get on stage, first set, no problem. Get off stage, and man, these joints ain't really hitting. Like, you know, they're kind of, you know, weak or whatever. We get on stage for the second set, and we start doing "Ah Yeah."
Uh-huh.
And Rob starts it off, and then I get ready for first verse, and you see me on stage.
Yeah,
You know,
you're always
my
adjusting.
rack is to the
You're always
left.
adjusting.
We
Yeah,
do
yeah.
all the modulation and stuff like that on
Mhm.
the MS-2000. So I'm thinking I'm turning the modulation knobs. I'm turning the pitch. So I'm like, I think
I think beauty is over.
So then Rob, he's playing. He's like, he does that look again. He's like, yo, what's going on? I'm like, what? He's like, what? What do you mean? And I'm like,
Oh,
what?
and you don't even know that you're messing up.
At this point, we're high. We don't even know we're high, right? So he's looking at me. He's like, what? So look, we're vamping, and he's just like, and he looks, and then I'm just like standing there, and then he's like, what just happened? I'm like, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah.
So then we're like, then it kind of like simmers down. We fade out, and then you hit the crowd like, yeah, woo!
Yeah.
It's like slow clap, clap here, and then like I turn around and like Bilal's like doing pirouettes, like turning like a ballerina over there.
Mhm.
We were toasted, man. It was
That's great. That's crazy.
Special time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question I ask everybody: top three keyboard players who are, and some of these might blend into each other. I usually say top 3 keyboard player like legends, and then like top 3 keyboard players like that you can call and be like, this is my friend, and like they're super dope.
Okay, legends.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Herbie.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably put George Duke in there.
Mm-hmm.
And they have 3. That's tough. I'm gonna say Joe Sample.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Joe Sample.
All right.
It was mixed between, and see, Zalonol is up there too, but I'm gonna go with Joe Sample.
Who's the other name you said?
Joe Zalon.
Okay.
I'm from Weatherford.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Sample because again, I'm a huge fan of the Jazz Crusaders, and Wilton Feld is like one of my favorite saxophone players, and he's an amazing bass player, and he's on so many records as a bass player.
Got you.
Me to be an instrumental, multi-instrumentalist.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, those are my 3. OG.
Mm-hmm.
Keyboard players. Present time, I'm gonna probably say James Hurt.
Okay.
Sullivan Fortner.
Absolutely.
And the third one, I'm probably gonna say Christian Sanders.
I like Christian Sands. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Someone mentioned Christian Sands in the last episode. I want to get him on here. I don't know him. I've never, but
Yeah,
no,
I'm
he's
probably gonna go
dope.
with Christian Sands.
Mm-hmm.
But Sullivan, have you heard him sing?
No,
This dude is so talented, man, and just
crazy.
so humble. Oh
Yeah,
man, this amazing cat, man. But yeah, those would be
got
those
you, got you. Your super group. Okay, so like I know like the Glasper Experiment and like everyone who y'all have played with is already a super group, but this is like if you had an unlimited budget, unlimited availability, pick like handpick a band that you would want to see accompanying um whatever artist or singer that you want them to back up. You don't have to be in the group. This could just be like your dream group lineup of musicians and vocalists or whoever you want to see. You can be in it if you want to. Only a caveat, it's just like they just have to be alive. That's all.
the people that are alive in the super group. It doesn't matter the instrumentation.
Uh I mean, like I try to keep it rhythm section and horns and singer. Like you can kind of do what you want.
Okay.
Like if you want
So like
multiple people on,
a quintet.
yeah, it can be whatever. It can be whatever.
I might put a guitar player in. Okay, so say sextet. So let's say on drums, I'd probably go with Mark Hollenberg. Mark Hollenberg on drums. On bass, I'm probably gonna go with. I might go with mono.
Mono Neon. Okay.
Yeah, that's tough. Man, it's tough. For now, I'd say mono.
Okay.
Keyboards. I'd go with Sullivan.
Okay.
I'd go, and the reason why I say Sullivan,
Mm-hmm.
because when you think of Sullivan, Sullivan's a pianist.
Yeah.
He's not real, but like what he do, like there's I have some random clips of Stephon Harris Blackout,
Mm-hmm.
and we were in Japan playing a tour at Cotton Club, whatever. And Sullivan, this is the time when Sullivan was in the band. And Sullivan, he never really did. He plays in church. He knows he can play organ.
Yeah.
He never really dealt with synths. And
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you something. This cat put his hand on some synth. I was just like, wait, you never? He's like, no, I don't know. I'm like,
That's crazy.
that
Yeah.
ain't. I mean, man, he's a brilliant cat, man, brilliant. So anyway, Sullivan would have the keyboard chair. Guitar. I'm probably gonna go with. As far as sound and stuff, like guitar playing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put my boyfriend in Chicago. Plays with Chris all the time.
Isaiah Sharkey?
Sparky.
Yeah.
Sparky, but then I love Randy Runyon. He just has great soundscape.
Mm-hmm.
Vocals, probably Bilal.
Yeah.
And then as far as horn, if it weren't me, as far as just see, there's not a lot of cats who do what I do.
Fair.
But as far as just a horn player, it's tough because there's a lot of cats who just are jazz and they don't do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard. I love Emmanuel.
Emmanuel
Wilkins. Wilkins is that?
Wilkins. Okay, I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking
He's
about.
on Blue Note.
Mm-hmm.
Love that cat.
Mm-hmm.
Love that cat. I like Tavon. I love Ben Render.
Mm-hmm.
There's not
Right.
They kind of, I like Joshua John. I'm cool with him. He's doing effects, but again, it's like, to me,
mm-hmm.
there hasn't been a lot of cats who do that
mm-hmm.
and have a distinct voice.
Yeah,
they don't spend enough time to have that distinct voice and be like, oh, like for me,
mm-hmm.
I think people are like, oh shit, that's Casey. Like I know that Casey, like that's what I think is missing from those horn players that want to kind of do in that place. And all the horn players, they're killing. There's so many killing horn players. They're killing horn players, but it's almost like a vocoder. Like you have keyboard players that do vocoders, but they sound like a keyboard player.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vocoder. The keyword vocal. You're supposed to sing. It's Herbie's not approaching it like Herbie's singing, even though he's not a singer, but he's singing. It's an extension of his phrasing. So I think you have to present yourself in that way of making it a tool or an instrument that emulates or coming close to the vocal, rather than just playing chops over.
Yeah,
it's just like you might as well just play it on the keyboard.
Right. I hear you.
So yeah, that's.
I got you. I got you. Okay, last real question. What do you want to leave with the people? It can be advice to anybody. It could be just, word of wisdom. What do you want to leave with the people?
My word of advice, and I was telling this to a young cat I just did a Winter Jazz Fest this past weekend. One of the cats I told, I was like, consistency. The thing that helped for me, or what I say about it is like, even if you feel, you have to follow your inner voice. And the thing that people latch onto is repetition. And if your inner voice is this, stick with it and just keep doing it, because that's how you're building your signature. If I stopped at every jazz critic in the beginning of the experiment, they hated the vocoder. Every club hated it. The critics, what is that shit? What is vocoder? Like they hated it.
Yeah.
They slammed it. Same thing. They did the same thing to Herbie back in the late 70s. They hated all of those albums. This is trash. Bill Summers said there was one show they were literally throwing fruit at them on stage.
It's crazy.
And Herbie sang through the vocoder. But if he didn't do that, it wouldn't be as iconic as it is today. So exactly. Like, you have to follow that inner voice and just be consistent, because believe it or not, you're building your signature. Even though it might not feel that people embrace it, they will. You may not love me now, but you're gonna love me later. That's my advice.
Got you, man. I appreciate it. Socials where people can follow you.
KC Benjamin, CASEY_BENJAMIN. That's on IG, on Twitter. I'm Stutz McGee. On TikTok, I'm Yeaman, YEAMAN. Facebook, it's my name, Casey Benjamin. Putting out a single this spring, an album soon to follow, like immediately following. I was definitely
gonna ask. Yeah, man.
I can't wait. Oh,
I can't. Well, hopefully you can tell me something about it off camera. But like, I can't wait. I've been
we'll talk off camera.
Okay, gotcha. But thank you all for tuning into another episode of the Major Keyz podcast. Get Casey's latest single, "Dig." It's on all streaming platforms, and maybe by the time this comes out, the new single will be out. Be on the lookout. That's it. My name is Zach Wilson. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Major Keyz podcast. Keep pressing on, and we will see y'all next time.